Well, we're back now for the year-end review. It is the end of the year, as you can see, or very, very near it, and we're going to make sure that we wrap up everything that we've been talking about all year. Everything, all the important things. This is the information that we researched about the year, and we've been divulging it as time has gone by, and we have a lot of important things to talk about. And the first thing is to mention that we're still in a political crisis, and a mumbling political crisis at that, in the United States. And what we have to do is take a look at what is making this political crisis happen. We have a president who is being criticized from almost all sides, from naturally the Democratic side and the independent side through Bernie, and also from the Republican side. And one of the biggest issues of them all that we need to wrap up is the immigration issue. This is the one that I think President Trump sailed into the White House on. He did that in a rather spectacular way. He's an excellent speaker, and he's excellent at riling people up. Whether you like him or not, you do have to admit that. From the beginning of the United States of America, we've had immigrants here, and that's all there is to it. Not every country can say that they were founded about 200 years ago, basically by immigrants. And so this is something to be actually quite proud of, because America is now a microcosm of the whole world. As more and more illegal immigration takes place, and as a matter of fact, as more and more of some of the legal immigration takes place, we are experiencing real strains here in the United States that throw some light and some shadows on a lot of other problems. The facts are very unclear. There are experts on each side who say totally different things. And it's a really interesting thing that a few years ago, a senator from Illinois criticized, right there out there in public, illegal immigration, or at least indirectly, and he said it made him kind of angry. That's not a quote, but that's the point of his statement. Kind of angry when he couldn't speak the same language as his automobile mechanic, a senator from Illinois a short time ago. His name was Obama. And he's a typical Democrat in many ways. Hillary herself criticized illegal immigration and called for some sort of a wall not too far ago. A lot of people who immigrate to America, into America, seem to prefer to vote Democratic. Now, that right away, you can find 6 experts on either side, but it looks that way, as though most immigrants currently seem to prefer to vote for the Democratic Party. America is fragmenting because of this, and in various ways. The parties are growing farther apart, the Democrats and the Republicans, and again, look under the surface to find what's going on because of immigration. What's going on is that the Republicans are making all sorts of noises to preserve the unity of the United States. And they criticize immigrants of all sorts, actually. That is, the Republican politicians do that. Under the table, of course, what are they doing? They are conspiring and colluding with big business. The last thing that they want is to stop the flow of labor that will accept low wages. That just happens to be a fact. You hear actually educated people saying things like, oh, you know, we just can't find people who will work out there in the fields. We can't find people who will do that under those broiling suns. We just can't find people who will do that. So we have to hire these immigrants, undocumented and documented. Now, that's not true at all. That is simply not true. Think of all the incredibly dirty jobs in steel mills and so forth and so on that our great-grandfathers and others worked in or worked when they came over from another country across the ocean. They came over here and accepted all sorts of dirty work. They did it. And their descendants are not so different, in my opinion, that they would actually say, I refuse to get my hands dirty. What they do refuse to say is, I refuse to get my hands dirty out there in the fields and so on without real pay. Take another popular target today, Mr. Zuckerberg. He and his friends in high tech are, as far as I know, Mr. Zuckerberg is in on this too. I can't really prove it. But many, many leaders of high tech are into granting special visas to people to come over here and work in our high tech arenas. They say too, you've got to feel so sorry for these people. They say too, we just can't find Americans. We just can't find Americans to do this work. Well, that's not true. That is not true at all. There are many intelligent Americans. What they have to do is get good training. And instead of getting good training, a lot of them are wasting their times in subpar high schools and subpar colleges, getting phony degrees left and right, with which they can do nothing special, even when they graduate. We've got to start training our own people. Think of that possibility. Just in case this sounds like an anti-immigrant diatribe, well, let me just say, it's not. I'm just saying that the immigrant situation has to be better handled. You can be anti-illegal immigration without being anti-immigrants. Very, very important point to make. West European countries focus on a government, get this, a government that actually provides benefits for everybody. Over here, we have a government, at least at the moment, that is foisting something else on us, in my opinion. The government here says, look, the most important thing in the world is the individual, and we don't want collectivism, socialism, or communism. That's all bad. What the government here fosters, or at least seems to love to foster, is individualism run amok, a war of all against all. And because of that, there is not enough, dare I say it, action made by and carried out by the collective. That sounds again like communism, but what it really means is there is a lack here of cohesion and unity between the people and the government. The government over here says, if you don't make it, too bad. We can always find somebody else to replace you. Whereas, as I keep saying, in Europe, the situation is different. Now, why harp on Europe again? Well, the statistics show that people in West Europe live longer than Americans. You can walk down the street at almost any hour, day, night, morning, evening, without being shot. You can send your children off to school reasonably certain that they will return healthy in the afternoon, and so forth and so on. Basic things are done right under a system where the government says we're here for everybody. And the individuals in West Europe who rise up to the top are taxed more heavily in some ways than they would be in America, and other financial arrangements are made so that the bottom 1/5 of society lives better than the bottom 1/5 of society does in America. It's not necessary to say to everybody, we're going to tax you so heavily that you can't make it big. You can still make it big in Europe, very big. But the point is that after very big, there's not unlimited room to keep on making all the money in the world. Again, like our friend Mr. Zuckerberg. Well, to wrap everything up, it's almost impossible to wrap anything up like this in one sentence or to really come to one spectacular point. But this year has been really vividly marked by the immigration debate. And the immigration debate sheds a lot of light on what we are as a country and where, at least in my opinion, where we ought to be moving. And right now, the only clear thing to say about this year and this year's wrap-up is nobody knows very much at all. We don't know what's going to happen in the next election. We may even have a president who quits before the next election and says, well, I've got something on my resume that very few other people have. President of the United States of America. And he quits, retires, and goes off to Hollywood. And he'll start making movies. That's actually probably the dream that he wants to entertain. So as a result of that, we really don't know what's going to happen at the end of this year or through next year. We can only hope, and this is a terrible joke, we can only hope that 2020 brings us more clarity. And so we don't know what's going to happen. We'll have to wait till next year to start finding out.